This is Dateline News and Conversation. The topic tonight is economics. Don't leave me. Stay with me. I'm not an economist. We're going to keep this very simple. My guest tonight, you know him. He's been on the show several times before. He's from Slovenia. He is an economist. He's a former politician in the Slovenian government. He's an activist. And he's an author. My guest, returning, Blaz Kavcic. Welcome back to the show, Blaz.
Hello, Regis. Nice to see you again.
I know I didn't do justice to your name, Kavcic.
Kavcic is exactly correct.
Kavcic,
well done,
okay.
Regis. Yeah.
So, Blaz,
Hmm?
I'm not an economist, but I've been trying to grasp some very basic fundamentals, facts. And I want to ask you your opinion about a number of things tonight to clear it up for me and for our audience. I have been reading for the last several months about the de-dollarization. In other words, a lot of countries, including the BRICS, Russia, China, and others, are now trading in their own currencies. Now, I know this is a complicated thing, but I'm also reading where the de-dollarization and other factors are leading to what has been described as an economic collapse of the Western economy. In other words, a shock therapy. I'm wondering what this is, and can this lead to the implementation of a new world economic paradigm? Help me figure this out, Blaz.
Thank you, Regis. I will try to debunk those things, and of course, I'm trying to analyze our life, how we are today, going back to the wise people from our past and today. And actually, I think one approach is very important. First, we have to decide: are we concentrated on our life here and today, or we want just to think about eternity and different concepts as if everything is going well. So my analysis is always concentrated on three areas. One area is more a philosophical area, development of our thinking. So the human society, how we think, from Confucius to antiquity to present philosophers. Second area is our creation. In order to live, in order to survive, we have to create. We have to create goods and services. So our creation is a second field. And the third field is our governance, because human society needs some organization and approach. And this is the concept I apply in analyzing what is going on, what is really going on. Now, more directly to your question, I have to make a little bit of introduction, because you have been discussing these issues with a number of your guests, and I can only recommend everybody to watch these discussions. My intention today is to add another perspective to analysis based on our multidisciplinary approach, which we discussed several times before. Now, to illustrate my contribution to the table, to get more practical and to maybe help people understand better what we are going to talk about concretely today, because we are not going to just chat as if everything is normal. We want to contribute something, and let me use two global events to illustrate this. One is United States elections, which everybody talks about. Another one is the larger financial nuclear bomb activated upon humanity just recently, a couple of days ago, which hardly anybody is talking about. Now, regarding United States elections, I would like to analyze one of the candidates, namely Dr. Jill Stein. I will be critical of her positions, but let me first propose the positive side of her candidacy. To be quite clear, she is the only candidate worth voting for. So if you want to listen to me, go out and vote for Dr. Jill Stein. The mainstream uniparty two candidates have been well analyzed by many people on the web. And some of them have defined them of two lessers of evil, not, which means a proposal to avoid the famous trap of voting for the lesser of two evils. Well, Jill Stein will appear as a candidate in most, maybe all, of United States, which differentiates her from other alternative candidates who will appear maybe only on one or on several of them. American voters are starting to think more intensively about alternatives. It's different than previous elections. And it would be an important change of political landscape if Stein gets, let's say, realistically 10% or even more. What can we say about the platform of Jill Stein? I have watched her recent discussion with Mikko Peled. Let's look at her platform through the lens of multidisciplinary approach. First, she correctly presents the need for a complete overhaul of American political system. So she could potentially be free of dogma of democracy, which we deal with in our book. But she fails to present a more detailed analysis of the institutions and motivations of the contemporary social governance. She always quotes Frederick Douglass, i.e., power concedes nothing without a demand. It's okay, but far too little for the situation we are in. It's much like asking the Nazi commander of Auschwitz to improve the quality of food in a concentration camp. So is Jill Stein aware of the paradigmatic gravity of the situation? If she is, she does not demonstrate it. Is she okay with the people being treated as hackable animals? This is one of the mantras of globalist preachers. Has she distanced herself from the globalist agenda? Alas, no. She remains well within the main globalist policies, even in her main fields of expertise, health and environment. Her statement praising the Cubans for developing their own COVID vaccine prove that Jill Stein remains embedded in Rockefeller medicine doctrine. Good for corporate and bad for human health. Consequently, her public health policy views are corporate and globalism friendly. Like we once could believe that Medicare for all was good for the people after Corona it must be clear to anybody that such policies are nothing else than executing depopulation based on population financing it ourselves. So the other strong area of Jill Stein should be environment. Unfortunately, this is another area where Jill is pushing agenda of climate change. She talks the Davos talk on renewable energy, on curse of CO2, but she does not even mention the main factors of environmental destruction we are facing, which are wars and militarization of science, technology, society in general, geoengineering, chemtrails, electromagnetic pollution, globalist industrial policy. And regarding monetary policy, she does not show understanding of value creation in society and money. So the best presidential candidate has a long way to go to understand and promote the basic factors of humanistic society harmonically functioning for the benefit of the people and the planet. So the other new global event I would like to present to warm up our discussion is one very few people talk and write about in a meaningful way, and this is the insolvency and start of the liquidation procedure of the biggest real estate speculator in the world, the Chinese Evergrande, or Evergrande, I don't know. American-German economist and historian William Engdahl writes about it in his last letter from 31st of January this year. Although this is by far bigger and more global financial bomb than those in 1930s and 2008, it is being downplayed by the globalists who continue to push further their war against the people and the planet under the titles of Great Reset and CBDC, which are nothing else than ambition of full spectrum dominance. We are facing a controlled demolition of the world finance, economy, and society. The leading narratives are dogmatic and wrong. People are generally more inclined to panic or to pretend nothing is going on than organize for defense and liberation. So let's go through some additional thoughts on what you proposed, Regis. First, let's say a few concrete things about de-dollarization. De-dollarization as such is a correct way to go. Slovenian National Council proposed de-dollarization of European Union back in 2012. Greek economist Varoufakis has written a great book then, The Global Minotaur, explaining how USA was controlling the world via double deficits, the trade deficit and the budgetary deficit. But we were then not yet fully aware of the fact that the European Union as an institution was a globalist creation, and that euro was the most perverse achievement of the globalists, designed to destroy the sovereignty of national states and sovereignty of the citizens of EU. And this has been done successfully for the globalists. De-dollarization. What is being pushed now is even worse than a dollar as a reserve currency. It is an artificial digital monster, CBDC, central bank digital currency, which has nothing to do with what citizens or national states need. We cannot avoid the need to get liberated first from the dogma of money. What really is money and what is not money. Very simple, but obfuscated by the powers and not debunked by the majority of alternative media. The statement of Elvira Nabiulina, the head of the Russian Central Bank, on how transaction of United Arab Emirates to Russia was performed without using American SWIFT service shows how stupid they think we are. They conflate everything: the creation of value, allocation of purchasing power, national transactions, international transactions, national credit, international credit. There are no miracles, just tricks. So, to conclude, de-dollarization, yes, but no new world currency, for God's sake. When we now look back at even at Maynard Keynes's proposal of Bancor in 1940s, it was a neoclassical weird concept of supranational virtual currency. We can recognize a long-term globalistic intent. On web today, you can find information that some Madam Galia Bernazzi co-founded a cryptocurrency conversion company, Bancor, in 2017. So it is lasting for decades. And they would like us not to see the most important fact in monetary national and international questions, and this is value is created within national states. For international transactions, we need bilateral or multilateral clearing arrangements, no new world currency. So, Regis, this would be what I think it's most important to point out related to de-dollarization. If you have any questions or remarks, please.
Well, I do. You went on extensively about Jill Stein. I know her personally. The last time she ran for president, I was in Portland, Maine. They needed somebody to go down to her house in Massachusetts to pick her up and drive her back to Portland, Maine, to give a number of speeches. So I did that. And I went to her house in Massachusetts and we drove back, and I had an amazing conversation with her. I really would hope that she will be successful, but I don't think she will. You mentioned a number of policy issues that she is not aware of or that she's pushing that are not healthy. You mentioned the Chinese economy. You mentioned the controlled demolition of the world economy, and that the EU was a creation of the globalists. I have felt, as an American expat living in Russia, that the EU has deprived all of the European countries of their sovereignty. We can see that playing out today with Viktor Orban, for example, objecting to more funds being sent to Ukraine, but then voting to send aid to Ukraine. The power of this cabal, the EU, all unelected officials, is superior to local, state elected officials. There's a problem with many of these elected officials as well. Apparently, many of them have been educated in the United States, in Columbia, Yale, the Ivy League schools. on the West Coast at Stanford, UCLA, Southern California. So this is, to me, really problematic. But I want you to get back and talk more about the globalist agenda to collapse the world economy. This is something that I believe is happening, but I do not understand it completely. Could you speak a little bit more about the globalist agenda in collapsing the world economy? Why in the world would anyone want to do that?
Well, there is a Jesuit principle called ordo ab chao, which means imposing the order, new order you want, by first creating chaos and by controlling the levers of power, like finance, police, military, judicial system, fiscal system. And they have this under control. Last 10 years was preparation for what is going on now. So on all major positions, not only politics. I mean, I intended to save some thoughts on politicians today. Later on, I would just mention now that all major positions in politics, in academia, in business, in culture, in Hollywood, have been carefully prepared. All positions are occupied by the people who were selected that will uncritically obey what they were planning to do and what is written in many documents. For instance, in 2010, in Bill Gates' strategic paper, it was clearly written what they intend to do and how they will do it with the help of pandemics, and how they anticipate the people to protest, and how these protests will be controlled and channeled and taken care of for us to accept. Let's say, I was to illustrate what the best people are here talking about. Like, for instance, Garland Nixon. I like to listen to him very much. He's an excellent guy. But he says a lot of things, most of them good ones. But let's say one of the ideas which is interesting he promoted was, what we need is a robust discussion, which sounds okay. We need a robust discussion. But discussion where one side is militarily organized, as globalists are today, and the other side should just discuss and discuss in hundreds and hundreds of different discussion circles, well, it's clear what is then going to happen. We need much more. We need people to take control of national states, and we need national teams that will make concrete plans to do that. So for a normal person, I think it's what you ask is a question of a normal person. Who on earth would like to destroy things? But the fact today is that this corona crisis has channeled and fueled an exponential growth of destruction, because every military dollar is dollar for destruction and corruption. And there is no destruction without corruption. And corruption is not a problem which could be solved as a problem. It must be solved at its roots. And one of the big lies today is that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the world. It's a joke. It's not. Ukraine is, of course, corrupt country, but without American and English and German corruption, there would be no corruption in Ukraine. So we are in such a critical situation that we have to look at the causes of the problems and not just get robustly occupied with discussing only the logical consequences of the system. So more than 70% of GDP today is used for destruction. Is this a good governance of the world? And this cannot last. And even on some alternative fora, there was a strong promotion of eschatological approach, meaning the you know very well biblical thinking and so on, and how Netanyahu interprets the Old Testament, that we have to speed up because God is working too slow. So we help God by creating the disaster faster and faster, and that then we will initiate the second coming of Christ, and then we have different scenarios. The Orthodox Jews are interpreting that everybody else will go to hell, just the Orthodox Jews will remain as a chosen nation. Evangelical explanation is different to that, and so on. So we were talking about this traps of wrong positioned religious thinking last time. I would not like to repeat that. But destruction, you asked me, destruction is built into the paradigm we live in. I have written about it more extensively in the book. I also mentioned the work of Thorstein Veblen, the Norwegian-American economist, who already nearly 100 years ago said the problem of humanity is not scarce resources. The problem of humanity is abundance and overabundance of things because the system is producing them. Sounds very illogical, but this is true. So the problem is not technology, but the problem is creating, manufacturing, spending much too much more than we need, because we are being forced to act like that by the paradigm we live in. So that's why we have to change the structure of governance of the human society today. Otherwise, we will continue our travel toward the abyss, meaning we need to change the paradigm. And this is also one of the things you and me were discussing when we were analyzing the positions of Jeffrey Sachs. He is a very eloquent, very erudite person, but he is a typical example of a person, academic, completely trapped into the wrong paradigm and looking for wrong proposals and wrong solutions. So if we don't change the system, we will continue to see the destruction. And I think that this year, 2024, is the year of destruction, year of crisis. And let's hope that it will be so severe that national teams will start to emerge, which will then continue to develop these protests, which we are seeing today of farmers, into something more political and bigger, because farmers are also, as all union people, are very easily corrupted and trapped and tricked. Farmers can never save themselves. Farming, agriculture cannot be saved alone. Agriculture must be saved as an important, vital part of a healthy society. And present decision makers or their delegates, because decision makers are in background, but the present decision-making system prevailing in Germany, in Netherlands, in Slovenia, in United States cannot solve the problems. It's just creating new tricks and new problems.
Wow. Um, I am wondering and I'm hoping that we are witnessing the collapse of an old paradigm, the paradigm of Western United States dominance, the paradigm of the American US dollar, the Federal Reserve. Um, and I guess, Blas, the hope is that if and when this Western system collapses, something good can rise from the ashes. I'd like your thoughts on what might rise from the ashes. Are there leaders out there in Europe and the United States who might be able to express the voice of the people? You mentioned the farmers. I'm watching the protest in Brussels, in Germany, in the Netherlands. Um, I don't believe these people are going to back down. I think their livelihoods are at stake. The question is, will these unelected people in Brussels listen? Your thoughts?
Yes, let's maybe exchange few views on BRICS Plus, which is a part of your question you are addressing to me. Now, I look positively and with hope on formation of the modern version of non-aligned movement, of something new. I tend to agree with those who claim that the main powers behind BRICS, Russia and China, are not proven to be aggressive territorial conquerors and have shown more understanding for the preferences of the various states in Africa, Asia, Latin America. But there are many problems, and we cannot simply understand BRICS as alternative to American empire domination. Very few people are ready to explain that American empire does not represent the interests of American people, but interests of globalist caste, which has been using American force as a bludgeon to conquer the world. And another problem we are facing is that the governments of practically all countries are national oligarchies, tightly connected with the globalist caste. So yes to BRICS Plus, but nothing good will come out of it until the citizens of individual countries do not establish democratic constitutional republics serving their citizens. So I would not like to support the way of thinking that there will be a fire and then will be ashes and something will grow. Of course, this will be kept, but there is always a chance that this process will lead to something even worse than we have today. So I think we have to organize to be able to articulate what we want, what we don't want, and I'm steadily inviting a group of people I call them patriots of knowledge in each individual country to come together and to formulate a program, because without a program with analysis and vision, we cannot expect from the general population to come up with solutions. We will be happy that a few percent of general population will, once the things get critical, they will be ready to follow some well-formulated alternative program, and let's work on it. Last time I listened carefully to your discussions with our friends from Norway, from Greece, and from the States. Excellent personalities with a lot of knowledge and experience. Also, I feel ethical approach and profile in them. Well, this is the people we would need as centers of organizational centers for each of the countries they're operating in, because it's not about how we will now discuss things on conferences and Zoom meetings and other kinds of meetings, and maybe write nice books and better books and more popular things. It's about organizing for defense and liberation. Until we come to this solid conclusion, we are turning in a circle, because it's not about who will say nicer things in our mics. It's about when we are going to act in an organized way, and before we act, we have to know what to do. And before we know what to do, we have to know what is really going on. And this has not been put on the paper well enough, but it has been done so in the history. We have been discussing that, and we cannot escape this step just by waiting that something will come down from the skies and save us. No, it will not happen. It will not happen. We have to show some will for survival in order to survive and thrive. And there is a lot of knowledge around. It just has to be put together in a contextual way. Regis, if you want, if you wish, I can now continue, because we have been covering already. You have been mentioning again the economic collapse of Western financial system. Is it okay that I formulate a few thoughts on that in a continuation?
Yeah, sure. But
Okay.
First, I want to ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think that the farmers in Europe now who are taking over the streets, they are in Brussels, they are disrupting everything that's going on? Do you think this is a necessary part to arriving at a new paradigm? I realize they're protesting about the protection of their jobs, protection of their farms from cheap stuff coming in from Ukraine. But is this what it's going to take globally? And I think we're seeing these uprisings globally over what's happening in Gaza, in Palestine. Is this what's going to take to create a shock that will enable humanity to formulate what you're talking about, a new way out of this?
Well, I'm not the wisest man on the earth. I wholeheartedly support this protests, but I have already years ago, during the Corona dictatorship in Slovenia, publicly explained my views that protests are okay, are necessary, but we have to reach a point where we come to the protests prepared with a program. We protest, and then we leave the protests being able to analyze what we have achieved and what are next steps. If we just satisfy ourselves by disturbing the flow of the business, we will farmers will annoy a lot of people, just like Yellow Vest made a lot of destructions, and there was a lot of provocations, and also false flags involved in this protest. So I have listened to one of the German organizers, and he came through as a very intelligent, well-informed person to me, also addressing some things in a more political way, because farmers are now in a position where they have the most clear situation, but they should invite other groups of citizens, like teachers, like workers, like engineers, pensioners, students to join. They should abandon understanding the government as a legitimized body with whom it's worth negotiating. I was so disappointed when I followed the Canadian truckers, where they had some appearances on television, and they were sort of asking if His Holiness the President Trudeau would accept them to talk. It's wrong. Trudeau must go. All the structures of government, I mean, all the people that have been involved personally in this Corona dictatorship, they have to go. We don't need to speak about guillotines and so on. They just have to be removed from the places of power. And this is the farmers are now in a position where they should formulate more complex, more political demands. If German farmers will not achieve that the Germany will once again belong to the Germans, then they will be bribed by some alleviation, some let's say candies, and they will be satisfied. And the next time they will not find the energy again to protest. So it's very critical moment. I wish them all the luck, but they should now show their organizational strength, which historically has been present in various nations, in various situations, to organize for a paradigm shift. Because the system, if they don't achieve the change of the system, and the key personnel that is working on the national level, there is no victory. I hope they realize that. I don't have any direct contact, and I see the situation in Slovenia. I'm talking to farmers and so on, but they are so self-centered, and they represent maybe 2.5–3% of the population. Of course, they are critical for food production and so on, but they are so easily satisfied if they get loans for the tractors and machinery and so on, and they live on subsidies. They are hardworking people, but it has been this European agriculture policy is a plague. It's destroying the agriculture. It wants to create more import, more export, more industrial, more genetically modified organisms in agriculture and so on. And farmers are very adaptive. They look how they will survive in a very narrow perspective. I don't know if they will manage now this time, maybe the German or Belgian farmers, to look the situation a little bit more broadly. But just fighting for the direct interests of the farmers will not create success, neither for them nor for the general population.
Wow. I read, and I forwarded to you, a recent article by William Engdahl, who I've respected. He wrote that the Chinese economy is imploding. And when I read this article, I thought, well, this is very convincing. But my God, if everything we're experiencing now in the West, in terms of the economy, in terms of exhausting the revenues of all of our countries, including the United States, on this war in Ukraine, on beefing up the military in Taiwan, and now adding more military power in West Asia, what does it mean, Blaz, if China's economy collapses? Is that a possibility, or is that just a dark dream?
Okay, let me say a few words on that. Economics collapse of Western financial system is our topic. I know what you mean by these questions, but in these complicated times, which you have illustrated additionally, we have to be precise. Now, in terms of economic collapse, Western financial system have to be understood correctly. We should not speak of West as some sort of entity. Global powers today control the globe, and the globe is round. Russia, China, India are not classified by them as West, but are today leading in implementation of the globalist military technologies. Central bank digital currency, digital identity, vaccines, satellites, 5G, 6G, artificial intelligence, UBI-1 and UBI-2, fourth industrial revolution, carbon footprint. This is all very intensively implemented in Russia, in China, in India. And we have to be aware that globalists are pushing elimination of 5,000 years long notion of money and using programmable tokens that have no relation to value creation, but are centrally issued, allocated, and canceled at the whim of the globalist caste. This is the situation we are in. Now, you already mentioned patriotic national elites of knowledge, which should be an alternative to present powers that be, should connect money creation with social governance. It's not being discussed. So connecting money creation with social governance. Money is not a question of technology. It is a social infrastructure, and we need money in this way just as we need once invented wheel. So money is indispensable category of modern society. You're right, Regis, when you ask about or warn against collapse, but we should better understand it as a controlled demolition, which was actually announced officially at the beginning of the Corona dictatorship, COVID-19 book by Dr. Klaus Schwab. This is very narrow window of opportunity to change everything, and everything means crashing down economy, society as it is, and introducing new artificial, synthetic, digitally controlled, full spectrum dominance, technocratic, transhumanistic. This is what they are doing, and we can't expect escape from that. So I wouldn't like to sound pessimistic. I'm not pessimist. I think that when the things will become hard enough, the people will move. I experience it. I see there is a lot of knowledge among people. Even intellectuals are now starting to rethink what have they been doing and promoting for the last few years, but we have still not reached a critical point. Well, maybe to wrap up our discussion on this issue, you asked me to say a few words about Steadfast Defender 2024, which is the largest United States NATO war games ever surrounding Russia. And this is very tightly connected to everything we have been talking about today. Now, I will try to contribute few short thoughts as an economist who is not a military technology expert, but who understands better than military experts what wars really are, what generates wars. So this Steadfast Defender should, of course, never be. It's preposterous. After collapse of Soviet Union in 1990s, even the former pretext for necessity of strategic weaponry disappeared. As Whitney Webb, for instance, said recently, after World War II, there was a merger of organized crime, formal politics, and permanent state. I'm paraphrasing her thoughts. In other words, we are confronted today with psychosociopathic in the background who are piloting directly the operatives in global institutions and so-called politicians populating the structures of national branches of power. Politicians, monarchies, celebrities are all used to perform in the age of spectacle and violence. Wars should never be other than strictly defensive. Games as a concept should never be applied to military, should never be applied to finance, to education. Main concepts I have described are nothing new. They are stipulated in charters of United Nations and national constitutions, but they are not respected. So this Steadfast Defender 24 is actually a brutal war against the people of Europe and the world, and is increasing the threat of apocalyptic destructions, not reducing it. So this would be my additional views to what was already explained in relation to this Steadfast 24.
Blaz, I have to thank you for your analysis and your thoughts. We've talked about a number of very, very deep, complicated issues that are, I think, are going to take some kind of a miracle for people around the world to not just rise up and protest, but to formulate what they want. This is the hard part, for a new global paradigm going forward. Steadfast Defender. I am very worried about this. I'm living in Russia. I try to put myself in the shoes of anybody in Russia, Putin, Shoigu, any of the people around him, looking at Steadfast Defender and wondering if this will be the final blow to take down Russia. How else can anybody interpret this? I feel it is an apocalyptic moment. I feel very concerned for all of humanity that is being held hostage by these psychopathic, greedy globalists that I believe are behind all of this. Blaz, thank you for your insight tonight. We're going to do this again on a regular basis. I need your thoughts that are very concrete, very wise, very analytical, to help me and many people figure out what is going on, what is really going on in the world, and what we must do tout de suite, as fast as possible, to save ourselves. Thank you, Blaz. We'll see you again.
Maybe, if I may, one simple concluding thought, Regis. It's I see you and me and our friends as splinters of wood. Each morning when I'm lighting a fire, I think of this idea that we need splinters, we need matches, we need paper. We cannot start a fire with big logs directly. So we are in a moment where paper means a program, analysis, program, vision. We need matches. We are matches, splinters. We need small fire. We have to be very careful. This fire should not extinguish. And then when the situation gets ripe enough, the fire will rise, and the new paradigm, good for the people and planet, will arise with our help.